Springfield Board of Mayor and Aldermen, regular meeting is called into session. Please stand and we'll have the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for being here tonight. Our first item on the agenda is 1.2, our moment of silence.
Father, indeed, we are thankful for this day. We're thankful for the many blessings of life that you give us. We pray that you be with us tonight as we meet on city business. We thank you for the city of Springfield, for our residents, for all the people that work here. Father, we just thank you for a blessed day that you've given us, beautiful weather, and if it's in your will, we'll take a little rain. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. 1.3, the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen held on July 16, 2024. We have a motion by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Holloman to discuss. Are there any corrections? No corrections? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 1.4, the approval of the minutes of the special call meeting for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen held on August 1st, 2024. Motion made by Alderman Holloman, a second by Alderman Hubbard. Are there any corrections to the minutes? No corrections? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 1.5, public comment period. I don't believe we had anybody to sign up tonight. We'll move on to our public hearings. Public hearing number 1, ordinance 24-12, an ordinance amending the electric conditions of service manual by adding a policy for interconnection due to renewal generation. If you would like to speak to this public hearing, please come to the mic, state your name and your address, and you have 2 minutes to speak. Anyone like to speak? If no one would like to speak, public hearing number 1 is closed. Public hearing number 2, ordinance 24-14, ordinance rezoning one parcel on Memorial Boulevard from R7 high-density residential to CS commercial services. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. No one would like to speak? Public hearing number 2 is closed. Public hearing number 3, ordinance 24-15, ordinance rezoning one parcel on Bradley Drive from MRO, multiple residential and office district, to RI, restrictive industrial. If you would like to speak, please come to the mic. No one would like to speak? Public hearing number 3 is closed. Our legislative agenda. 2.1, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 24-12 on a second and final reading. Ordinance amending the electric conditions of service manual by adding a policy for the interconnection due to the renewal generation. Motion made by Alderman Holloman, second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Do we have questions, ladies and gentlemen, on the second and final reading? No? Okay, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 2.2, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 24-14 on a second and final reading, or ordinance rezoning one parcel on Memorial Boulevard from R7 high-density residential to CS commercial services. Motion made by Alderman Holloman, a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Any questions on this second and final reading on this property? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 2.3, discuss and possible take action on ordinance 24-15 on a second and final reading. Ordinance rezoning one parcel on Bradley Drive from MRO, Multiple Residential and Office District, to RI, Restrictive Industrial. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss. This was an error we found, and we're correcting the error. Any questions? No questions, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 2.4, discuss and possible take action on 24-16 on a first reading. Ordinance amending the fiscal year 2025 annual budget for the city of Springfield by amending certain general fund and utility funds operating budgets. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Holloman to discuss. Any questions on this bookkeeping? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 2.5, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 24-10. A resolution authorizing the appropriation of funds for the fiscal year 2025's annual budget for the financial aid of nonprofit, charitable, and nonprofit civic organizations in accordance with Section 6-54-111 Tennessee Code annotated. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss. Any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 2.6, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 24-13. A resolution authorizing the city of Springfield to participate in the Property Conservation Matching Grant Program offered by Public Entity Partners. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss. I'm going to call on our city manager first, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a relatively small grant, but the main thing I want to point out to you is that those matching funds, it is a matching grant program. Those funds were in the budget. This is something that we were going to do anyway. This is for some network security hardware, and that's the purpose of this grant. It's a conservation grant through our insurance carrier, insurance pool, Public Entity Partners. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Okay, questions? No questions? If there's no discussion, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 2.7, discuss and possible take action on Resolution 24-14. A resolution declaring certain properties surplus and authorizing the disposal of such properties. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss. Another monthly bookkeeping matter. No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 2.8. This is an error on our part. We need to do an A and a B. This needs to be broken down, correct?
That's correct.
And A is we're going to discuss and possible take action on Resolution 24-15A, a resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $5.8 million in aggregate principal amount of general obligation public improvement bonds of the city of Springfield. She took my stuff away. The city of Springfield,
You did good
Tennessee.
anyway, though.
I got to the
You
end.
got
Alderman Hubbard has made a motion to discuss, and Alderman Holloman is second that. And I'm going to call on our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So, as the mayor was saying, we're going to break this down into two. We had originally had one resolution on the agenda. Normally, we do two. We thought we would only do one this month, and here's the reason for two resolutions. The first resolution that you're going to vote on authorizes the notice to the public, okay? And that requires its own resolution. The second resolution that, which would be B, 24-15B, is gonna authorize the issuance of the debt. Now, our bond advisor, Ashley McAnulty, is here tonight. If you have any questions, Ms. Crockett can also answer any questions if you have any. The issuance won't take place probably until the spring, and this is for the water treatment plant project that's in the budget, upgrading the variable speed drives at the water treatment plant.
Are we breaking this into two tonight?
Yes.
Or-
Yes.
This is A. The one I read is
We're gonna-
A.
Basically, we're gonna take two votes, and the resolutions are for the same thing, but they have slightly different wording.
But we're not gonna see the wording on the second one.
In a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you're gonna see the.
And both
I'm gonna read
resolutions
from
are in
the-
your
It's
packet.
in your packet on
Yeah.
here.
Sorry, we thought we could put these together and,
Yeah, we did.
we're not aware that we could not. You know how the attorneys are, sorry. They made us separate them. Any questions on this, on A?
Just want to reiterate the comment, what is it, 3.65? That's good low. Just at this bar, on the bar rate.
Okay.
This is just authorizing the issuance,
Yeah.
not to exceed an
And
amount.
we don't
This
know
is-
exactly
We don't
which-
know, because
Yeah.
we're talking in the spring, so this is not,
Well, I'm just saying right now.
if we did that today,
I was just
yeah, we're hopeful.
very hopeful.
Yes, sir. I just wanna make sure you know you're not voting on a rate. This is just for the issuance. Thank you for pointing that out. Any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Okay, 2.8 B. Discuss and possible take action on resolution 24-15B, a resolution authorizing the issuance not to exceed $5.8 million in principal amount of general obligation. I'm sorry, I can't see that far, but I didn't get any better with putting my glasses on. Public improvement bonds of the city of Springfield. Now I have an excuse, it's not on the screen. Make the improvement bonds for the city of Springfield, making provisions for the issuance of the sale and the payment of said bonds, establishing the terms thereof, the proceeds, I'm sorry, I can't read, and providing the levy of taxes for the payment of the debt service on the bonds. Okay, and we have a motion by Alderman Hubbard and a second by Alderman Holloman. Any discussion on this? No discussion? Everybody understands what we're voting on? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Our administrative agenda. 3.1, discuss and possible take action on the adjustments of the retail electric rates from the Springfield Electric Department due to the wholesale fuel cost adjustments by the Tennessee Valley Authority. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss. And we have a second by Alderman Hubbard. Mr. Terry? Thank you. Any questions or discussion? No discussion, we're ready for a vote. 3.2. Yeah, we got a tally. Thank you, Melissa, for keeping me on target. What's our tally?
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 3.2, discuss and possible take action on the adjustments of the monthly gas rates for the Springfield Gas Department. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard to discuss, a second by Vice Mayor Harris. Chris?
The purchase gas adjustment is down 2.55%.
Gentlemen, I like how you both gone downward in the, drop the rates. I know you don't control them, but thank you. Any discussion? No discussion, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 3.3, discuss and possible take action to ratify an emergency purchase by the Parks and Recreation Department for 3 John Deere Z96M Z-Track zero-turn mowers in the amount of $37,401.12 from Hudson Inc. of Clarksville, utilizing the Sourcewell contract 031121 DAC. Our budget was $40,000. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Holloman. Yes.
Well deserved.
Yes, sir.
They keep that greenway mowed. And
Do a great job.
since I'm the second ambassador of the greenway, appreciate it.
How many days a week are you out there, sir? 4? Good job. We'll expect everybody else out there. City Manager, Mr. Ryan Martin, we'll expect you to do a little exercising out there.
I don't know. I spend most of my time at Travis Price on the baseball field, so.
Okay, we'll let you swing.
Comment, I would just recommend to our citizens, give it a try. It's very scenic, and it's a good place to establish good interpersonal relationship one with the other. So, it's a good community and site builder, okay?
Yes, it is. And we are blessed to have one of the largest park systems in any municipality in the state of Tennessee. Any questions or discussion? No questions, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 3.4, discuss and possible take action on an amendment to the radio station site lease at the Springfield Robertson County Airport. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss. I'm gonna call on our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor, and I will start my exercise routine soon. But first, let's talk about the radio station tower at the airport. This is a lease that goes back to 2009. Remember, the airport is property that is jointly owned by us and the county. So that's why this is coming to you all. The county would have approved this amendment last night. 2 things have happened here. This lease, the amendment to this lease is really boils down to 2 items. Getting the right name of the company. The company has been bought and sold. You can see in the recitals of the lease, the company's been bought and sold or acquired 3 or 4 times. So the name of the company, which was ITT in the original lease, is no longer that company. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the term was supposed to expire in 2025. It amends to square up the term of the agreement with the FAA contract. That way you don't have to go back and keep doing that. As long as there's an FAA radio license, there will be the ability to operate the radio tower there.
Okay. Questions?
Proud of our airport.
Our airport looks
It
great.
stays busy, yes, it does.
It's amazing to know how many people are coming in and out of our airport. Any discussion? No discussion, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 3.5, discuss and possible take action on a concrete construction contract for the street construction and maintenance and repair in the amount of $975,570 with Session Paving Company of Nashville, Tennessee. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Holloman to discuss. Any questions on this contract? Got a lot of paving going on around.
Doing a good job, sir.
Yes, sir, he is. No discussion, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 3.7, discuss and possible take action on a paving contract for street paving in the amount of $1,767,366 with Session Paving Company of Nashville, Tennessee. Oh, well, I just marked it out, because okay. I could tell that, Ms. Crockett was over there going, something wrong. I'm just seeing who's awake, who's not awake in the room. 3.6, let's back up. Thank you for pointing that out. Discuss and possible take action on a patching contract for utility street maintenance and repair in the amount of $742,400 with Session Paving Company of Nashville, Tennessee. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Holloman to discuss. Any questions on this contract for patching? No questions, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 3.7, discuss and possible take action on a paving contract for street paving in the amount of $1,767,366 with Session Paving Company of Nashville, Tennessee. Motion made by Alderman Holloman, a second by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss. Any questions? No questions on the paving contract? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 3.8, discuss and possible take action to approve the funding in the amount of $53,000 from the city contribution for the TVA Home Uplift Program. Motion made by Alderman Holloman, a second by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss. Any questions on this funding?
I appreciate the fact we had it. So
Yes, sir.
give a facelift to some of our dilapidated housing, so.
Okay. Any questions? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 3.9, discuss and possible take action on the city court fees. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Alderman Hubbard to discuss. Any questions on this new? On this action?
Make sure to understand,
Yes, sir. I'm gonna call on our city manager.
no, I have a question.
Sir?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You call it all right?
I'm ready. Go ahead with your question for Ryan.
Oh, okay. So we have certain things that come up in city court that we cannot charge court fees for. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Give an example of that.
Seatbelt citations are one of those, where state law doesn't allow court costs to be applied.
Okay. But you can put that back into, even though you can't charge that person court fees, it can be put back into the overall court fee
That's correct. So if.
as a whole.
In your memo here, what we did is we took the number of violations, we took the cost of operating city court and the number of violations that were charged court costs and arrived at that number that way.
Okay. So then to also understand, if I leave here tonight and Nick pulls me over and gives me a ticket for speeding, the most I'm gonna have to pay on that citation is $50 plus court cost.
Correct.
And that's whether I go to court or I don't go to court.
That's
I
correct.
still pay the court cost even if I just choose to pay it
That's right.
without going to court.
If you go to the police department to pay the citation and avoid coming to court and avoid appearance, then you would pay the court cost plus the fine,
Okay. So then out of our current court cost is $55.75,
$55.25.
$25, and is that all ours or does is that part of that go to TBI or is that in addition?
The $55.25 is all ours. There is a litigation tax on top of that.
And then to the TBI?
That's correct.
And then the state gets something also, or is it just, is there two more additional fees?
There's two
or-
more. There's $1, that's a computer fee, and then there's a $13.75.
And that's in addition to what our costs are?
Correct.
So this fee that you put in here tonight, or what you're saying, this is what it cost us to operate in court?
That's correct.
And we cannot charge any more than that? That is,
That's correct.
I mean,
We, we can't run the court and charge court costs that exceed our costs, that are pecuniary, because we can't charge more than $50 for the actual fine, for the cost of the ticket. Your speeding fine is $50. We can't try to recoup any additional expense through our certainly have the right to cover the cost of our court.
So I guess what I'm asking, the fee that he's put in here says $113.74. If we made the motion tonight that our court cost be $115, are we out of line?
No, we are not out of line. That would be,
That's
that would be
acceptable.
acceptable, yes.
But no, probably not much more than that or anything of that nature.
Correct.
So are we needing a motion tonight to set court cost, or what are we,
If you
what are
want-
we needing?
If you want to.
We would need a motion, so if I can clarify with you, so the maximum calculation that we arrived at was $113.74. And what you're saying, Ms. Barty, is it's okay if we go above that?
If we go to if we go to an even number,
Uh-huh,
then we are fine.
Okay.
It's not, it's a dollar.
It doesn't have to be exact.
It does not have
Okay.
to
So
be
we can
exact.
go to 114.
yeah, we've got 114 or 115.
Correct.
I will make the motion that we set the city court fees at $115.
Okay, motion on the floor.
I'll second it.
Okay,
And Mayor, what we'll do before the board, so we're clear on expectations, what we'll do is if that's the will of the board, what we'll have to do is
We'll
bring
write
that
it.
back next month in the form of an ordinance to change that fee.
so we really don't need to vote on that,
I
Ms.
just need to
Barty.
ask you to put it on next month's agenda that we set court cost
That
at
we're all in
$115.
Yeah, if we get, consensus from everyone, that everyone wants,
Well, two of them have,
Bring it back.
correct,
yeah, and I'm in agreement,
then we'll
so,
bring $115 back in the form of an ordinance next month.
okay. All right, we're moving on to 3.10. Discuss and possible take action on the special occasions beer permits. Would we like to discuss this or move on to the next agenda item?
Well, this was,
Me too.
something that I think I brought up.
Yes,
and,
ma'am.
So I did have a chance to look through it. And I guess my only question, I see here the comments, but I would just be curious to hear, maybe from you, Ryan, as to why we're drawing a distinction between nonprofit activity versus other activity, because all of this would be occurring presumably on private property, not on public property. So it seems a little bit arbitrary to me, and I know that's how the state does it. It still seems arbitrary to me, so I would just love to hear your feedback on why you think maybe that is, since you guys have done some research into it.
I will. I'll be glad to share, and thank you. So we did a lot of digging into this, and so we did not find any other city besides Gallatin. The unique thing about Gallatin is that while they allow for this, they told us that they've never issued one.
Interesting.
So we didn't have anything to draw from to look and see, well, how did it go? I think our position with regard and our support from a staff perspective of the nonprofit versus for-profit is nonprofits are gonna have some accountability, right? Nonprofits are gonna have an identity generally and accountability, and that's kind of the legislative intent, from my understanding, behind allowing that to happen is when nonprofits who don't have a static presence will use the Rotary Club or the Kiwanis Club, for example, they're allowed, it gives them an opportunity to sell beer at a fundraiser or at an event they have. The concern with for-profits is the concern where do you draw the distinction between the entity? And so a DBA, for instance, an individual that could come up and get a beer permit and then sell and have a party and rent out space or have a party in a parking lot. We have a lot of events that happen in parking lots in the city. And so that would be the concern, but then there's less accountability. We talked about limiting internally. We had the conversation, well, what if we limited those permits? Well, this person could do it as a DBA, then this person could do it next month as a DBA. And so not really being able to go somewhere and look for evidence of, hey, how did you do it where it worked, right? Because Gallatin said they hadn't. MTAS also did not recommend this. And MTAS is, when we get an adverse recommendation from MTAS on something, that's something else that causes us to kind of take pause. So that's why our position was, we don't recommend an ordinance change at this time because we just don't know what that looks like. We do have a pretty good substantial increase in DUIs locally. We had a pretty good increase last year, and we're on pace this year to break the record, or not break the record, but to exceed last year's number. With all of those things, we weren't sure about opening up, because what we thought it might lead to is just parties. That would be
Sure.
a special occasion permit parties. We don't want to limit the legitimate operator. The issue is, how do you mitigate that risk when anyone can become a legitimate operator at that point?
And just so that everyone on the board is kind of aware of where this came from, this originated because of, I think, a Tractor Bowl.
Yeah.
They're affiliated, where they were interested in having vendors come in. It's not a not-for-profit, so, and I wanna say the way that the law's written right now is if they have one vendor come in, like a beer vendor, it's like that's the vendor locked in for an entire year. And I don't know how to go about changing that, I'm not sure that that's within our purview to change those types of rules. So that's where this came from, which is certainly a bit different than the concept of having a party in
Parties.
in a parking lot, which is not something I think any of us want. So I appreciate you guys looking into this. I know that from my constituents that I've spoken with, they're still very interested in seeing how this could be made to work, but I appreciate you bringing this to our attention, or the concerns.
Sure, and if it's the will of the board to change that, we'll follow, as I've, told you, we'll support and follow any regulations that you want to enact. We just weren't comfortable enough to bring you and say, well, we've looked at this and this works when so-and-so does it, and this is how they made it work, and we didn't feel comfortable enough with enough data to have a recommendation for you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
We currently have an open container law on our books, is that correct?
That's correct.
So if we issue a special permit, that supersedes that law?
It doesn't.
So even where a nonprofit is concerned, how does that affect our police department? I know that there's not been any of these permits issued in a long time, but if there was to be one issued, and you've got people with open containers, are they still not in violation of the law?
If that issue were to come up, we would ask the city attorney if a permitted event, let's just say, now, talking about special occasion beer permits, those are things that happen at the center, those are things that happen at the fairgrounds, those are things that happen not just on public property, but if we had a permitted event that also received a beer permit, we would want to get legal advice on whether or not open containers are allowed. We did most recently have a request come up with a permitted event that an organization was doing a pup crawl. It was a benefit event, and we did tell them they could not be out with open containers, and they explained to us that they weren't planning on it anyway. So that situation worked out. If it was pushed, I'm not sure, and if it's a permitted event, if it's how that would work. I know the way it used to work, but Chief Head and I have not encountered that interpretation of the ordinance.
You just brought up about Kiwanis or Rotary or something, so if they applied for a permit to have some type of event, by the way it's written right now, we could issue that permit for them to have an open container because they're nonprofit.
No, we're talking about two different things. We're not talking about open containers, we're talking about their ability to serve.
Okay.
Yeah, so special occasion beer permits allows them to serve. If Kiwanis wanted to rent out the center and get a beer permit, they could do that under this ordinance because they're a nonprofit.
But they couldn't rent out a private open-air parking lot and do that?
They could. They could. If they were on private property, they could do that.
Okay. I just understand how to do it. But I would
It's
think
so
with
confusing.
MTS not recommending it, that we probably don't need to change anything. from
I
what it
agree.
currently is.
I agree. Mr. Howard?
I'm going along with the MTS.
Yeah.
This is proven analytical research. They really don't
Sounded
talk.
good in the beginning, and then all of a sudden you start talking about these parking lots and who owns it this week and next week, and, whew.
But you think about the accountability thing, private, as far as someone coming out of a club or something like that.
Okay. If everyone agrees, we'll move on to the next agenda item, and thank you for bringing that for the citizens. 3.11, discuss and possible take action on the easement agreement for the Wartrace Creek Interceptor wastewater project. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris, a second by Alderman Holloman. Any questions on this easement? We've talked about this project for a long time, have we
And
not?
it's still going.
Any discussion? We're ready for vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 3.12, discuss and possible take action on an offer for tax sale property. Motion made by Alderman Hubbard, a second by Alderman Holloman to discuss this offer. Any questions on this offer?
This is one lot?
It is.
Woodland Street.
They've been bidding against each other for over a year.
What size lot is this?
It's a quarter of an acre, I believe.
Any other questions?
Gonna be a Dollar General? Just a house, I guess.
To be continued. No questions, we're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. 3.13, discuss and possible take action on the water system growth. Motion made by Vice Mayor Harris to discuss, a second by Alderman Holloman. Any questions, discussion on this?
City manager, any comments?
This was in our comprehensive growth plan study.
Right.
Any questions? No questions? Thank you for, I have to tell you that the board has done a great job over the past couple of years of reading their packets and studying before they get here. And I know to the audience, probably sometimes you think we're not working, but, we've had a lot less questions, and I know that they are studying and asking questions before they get here, so I appreciate what each and every one of you do. It's been a great run of everybody reading their packet, and
Mr. Martin
Less
has to,
contentious debates.
Mr. Martin has to deal with us the other 29 days.
True.
We'll do all our questions in those days.
well, and that's a great job to y'all, that y'all done getting prepared for these meetings. I have set up here in years past where we were not always prepared. Questions on this action, what would you like to do on the growth plan?
Ready for the vote.
There's nothing to vote on. We wanna hear what you would like the city manager to come back and do.
I mean, it would be my recommendation to go forward with what you're recommending. or
Agreed.
What you feel
I
like
agree.
needs to be done.
I agree.
So I'm assuming you bring that back to us next month? to
We
vote?
would,
Yes.
yeah, same thing. If our proposal is amenable to you all, then we will bring that back in the form of a formal
The
policy.
way it's been explained to us, I say move forward.
Okay, I agree.
Agree.
Mr. Hubbard? Agree? Okay,
Ready to rip.
we'll move on to our consent doc.
Mayor, without objection, I move to take as one.
Thank you for not making me read that.
It's a long one.
We've had a motion and we've had a second to take this all as one. Are there any questions on the consent doc? No questions? We're ready for a vote. Anyone like to change their vote? Please record the votes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. And I will like to announce that on Friday night, Springfield High School football starts, and I will expect to see all of you in Greenbrier football game. It's exciting, and the weather's better, and it's football time in Tennessee, and so come out to see Springfield play. We're going to have a good year this year. I'm gonna turn it over to our city manager, Mr. Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. The first thing I want to draw your attention to in your packet is Section 5.0. There is a letter from the Comptroller's Office of the State of Tennessee, and it's a good one. Happy about that. It's a commendation for our budget. We received 2 commendations. One was for timely adoption, so kudos to you all for moving forward and moving quickly and adopting the budget as required by law in a timely manner. And then the second commendation is for distinguished submission, and that's has to do with the detail of the presentation, and that is a kudos to Ms. Crockett for putting that budget together and giving them something that they could read, I guess, when it got there. So that's really good news. You know, oftentimes cities don't like getting letters from the Comptroller's Office, but this one was a good one. So we're grateful for that, and thank you. Oh, Want to tell you about something, an initiative that we've begun in the last month at the police department, and that is the launch of our new traffic unit. We are at a point at the PD where we are somewhat fully staffed. It's been a difficult period in law enforcement over the last several years, and we're at full capacity now, and we're excited about that, and it allows Chief Head to do something that was part of his vision when he became chief. It's just taken a while to get there, and that's to have a dedicated traffic unit. The timing is good because I just mentioned earlier that our accidents in town have been over 600 the last 2 years. That is entirely unacceptable. We all know what we're dealing with now with distracted driving, and there are tons of distractions when you're out and about now. So we've got to do some, ramp up our enforcement and awareness to make sure that folks are paying attention and being safe when they're driving. And so we've had that. We've had an increase in DUIs, so that traffic unit is helping with that. But also we've got a DUI initiative that's coming thanks to the help from the state later this year. So to share just with you a little bit of that, in a 4-week total since the traffic unit was launched, there have been 192 traffic stops that they've conducted, 17 motor vehicle accident reports, 170 citations, and 2 arrests. The traffic unit can also help ease the burden on patrol with things like funeral escorts, and so they've taken care of those things as well. So having that dedicated traffic unit, what we want to see, it's not about revenue, and I say this for anyone that thinks, well, we're just out to get revenue, that the revenue from citations, the $50, as Mr. Harris was talking about, does not move the needle in our budget. It's not about revenue, it's about making sure our citizens and residents are safe. That's why they're out there. We've got to get that accident number down. And so we've got to get people to pay attention. And so they're giving some warnings when they need to, and writing some citations when they need to do that as well. Also, since I'm giving numbers, I'll give you one more number. And I want you to formulate a number in your head when I tell you what this is, and then see if you're right or wrong, or if you're close. Our electric vehicle charging station opened in the end of March, so really April was the first full month, and so we've got a few months of data here that's been operating. And I want you to think about how many times that has been used in the last 4 months. And the number is 178. We've had 178 vehicles charged at that station, so that's good to know that folks have found that, they're using that, and it's serving the purpose of why that we agreed to partner with 7 states and the grant that we received for that and make that happen. So thanks to the state and to 7 states Power Association for that as well. Batson Parkway. We'll be opening within the next month, we expect. It is very, very, very close to nearing completion. We're wrapping up some electrical conduit work down Batson Parkway, and so we're going to hold off on paving a little bit until most of that gets finished. We don't want to go in there and bust up new pavement. So we are on the final stretch of Batson Parkway extension, and we are excited about opening that up and seeing how that alleviates traffic congestion, and then evaluating what that does to traffic in various parts of the city. But that's coming in September. On a not so much lighter note, our sales tax numbers for the first 2 months of the year are in, and they are not where they were towards the end of last fiscal year. And so we're not necessarily falling behind budget, but we're not exceeding budget the way we were. I mean, we had a June that was out of this world, the reports that came in, which would have been April sales. June and July's numbers, July and August numbers haven't been that overwhelming. So we're going to keep monitoring that to see if that's an indicator of the economy. It looks like things are still performing well. We do budget conservatively, so we're prepared for that. But we're not seeing the margin of budget exceeding like we were. So keeping an eye on that. You'll also notice when you came in, we're doing our renovations at City Hall that have been planned for the last couple of years. That was one of the carryover items. All that's finally coming to fruition. Replacing some carpet that is an embarrassment. We're painting some walls that need to be painted. We're doing a lot of things that need to be done to patch up this old building and make it more, the quality a little better for not only our employees but also our customers that come in. So we're doing that, and so we'll have also that relocation done. That'll be coming in a little bit, that relocation of the receptionist, of the administrative secretary that will be moving out to the lobby there, which will help with customer service as well. And finally, our new gas director will start on Monday the 26th. His name is Benji Davis. He spent a lot of time in the gas industry with Piedmont. He's been with a consulting firm the last few years, but we're excited about having him We spent a lot of time with him, talked a lot with him, and vetted him and checked him out, and we're excited about having a gas director take over, so you'll see him next month. Mayor, that's all I have.
Mayor?
Well, and I will point out too, from what Mr. Martin was saying, I need you to leave this room, talk to 5 people about shopping at home, so that sales tax number comes up for the following months in our budget. For us, the city of Springfield, and for Robertson County, shop at home. I need you to say it to 5 people. I need you to say it to 5 people tomorrow, not the people you live in your house with. Understand? I need this also for the people that are watching. Shop local. Support our own police department and our own streets. And yes, sir.
I would just like to invite everyone out to the John Merritt Classic football game next Saturday. I'm a former John Merritt football player, and you want to see some good hard-ball college football, come out to Nissan Stadium. And we are directed by Coach Eddie George.
That's great. Thank you for coming tonight. Meeting's adjourned.